Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're going to do a standalone today. Now, this is by Elise Faber. The series is called The Billionaires Club, and each book is an individual story. And we're going to dive into book 2, which is called Bad Breakup. We meet Cecilia Thiel, and she is in a first class seat. We find out she was gifted these seats from her employer slash friend. And Jordan, is it Jordan and Abby or Jordan and Stacy? One of the two. Their story is actually the first one in the series. And again, each one can be read individually, but you'll get like little peeps throughout each of the books. So that first book is called Bad One Night Stand. So again, if you want to read about their story, you can dive into that one. So they gifted her these seats, and she's decided, you know what? She's so happy to take this trip, and she hears someone sit next to her, and she hears a voice, and all of the hairs on her body stand up. And then the flight attendant says, is there anything I can get for you, Mr. McGregor? And she knows who it is. And she doesn't say anything. She opens her eyes, but she does not look in his direction. And then he says, Cecilia, is that really you? And we find out this is not just an ex-boyfriend. This is an ex-fiance that left her at the altar 6 years ago. Colin McGregor is his name. And she doesn't say anything. All she does is thinks in her head, he's got no power over me. She puts her earbuds in and closes her eyes again. For the next 3 hours, he basically stared at her. She didn't look at him, but she could feel it. You can feel when someone's looking at you. He still has an effect on her physically, just being near him. It makes her want to snatch him up, take him in the bathroom, and have her way with him. It's just always been that way. So we also find out that she tried to switch seats, and she even tried to maybe give someone in coach, they could come up and have a first class seat. And the flight attendant was like, first class is full, can't switch you. And then they looked at her like she was crazy when she had the other idea of someone else coming from coach to first class, well, economy to first class. So the woman, she winds up having to just go back to her seat, and he says to her, you're just as beautiful as the last time I saw you. It almost made me think about how, if you've ever watched this cartoon movie, it's amazing. How to Train Your Dragon, when Stoic saw his wife after all those years, it almost made me think about that comment. But anyway, I digress. So he says to her, I never should have let you go. And she tells him, don't say things like that. And we find out he apparently broke her heart twice. And that's kind of like, now, how did you do it twice? I understand misunderstandings and things like that, but twice? That kind of makes me feel like, I wouldn't really trust you too much. So after he had made the statement about, I never should have let you go, she says, was that after the first or the second time? And he has this confused look on his face. And she kind of looks at him like weird, like he's always been very sure of himself. So him looking confused is weird to her. Colin is Scottish. He's also a duke. And apparently one time there was a comment made that, she wasn't important enough because her parents disowned her. And it was like he wouldn't have disowned her. So I don't know. I don't know if it was taken out of context. I'm not sure. But, as we keep reading, we'll get a little bit more. But she's sitting there going, like, this is a crappy way to start off her vacation. She's going on this dream vacation, and this is crappy to start it off this way. We then switch to Colin's POV. I love it when we switch. And he says she smells like jasmine and vanilla, which is just how he remembers her. She falls asleep, and so she's kind of like snuggling into him. And so he hasn't wanted to move because he doesn't want her to like wake up, realize she's laying on him, and then she'll like pull herself away from him. We find out that according to him, she broke his heart. So I don't know. Clearly something happened. He's saying that I guess she ran off with a guy, and after she ran off, his dad dropped dead while yelling at a tenant, and then he had to go and take over the family business. And so everything was just falling apart, and his family was on the brink of financial ruin. So he had to learn all the businesses and get everything back up, and it's been about 6 years since the last time he saw her. So he's just done a deal with Robotech, which, if I'm not mistaken, either she works for or one of her friends owns it. So when she finally does stir and wakes up, she realizes she's on him, and she starts doing the whole, get off me thing. She elbows him in the stomach, and he's just kind of like, would you chill? You're kind of stuck. She got her hair stuck on one of his buttons. And so eventually she chills out, gets loose, and when she pulls her hair up into like off of her neck to put her hair up, he sees a name on there, and he says, what the fuck is that? And she looks at him, and she's like, it's been 6 years, I cut my hair. He's like, I'm not talking about that. I like the cut of your hair. He's like, but what the fuck is another man's name doing on the back of your neck? Now, to me personally, I haven't been with you in 6 years. I don't have to answer you, right? That would be my response. So we switch back to Cecilia. I like calling her Cecilia. They'll call her Cece sometimes, but I like her name Cecilia. So we switch back to her POV, and we find out that the name written on the back of her neck is Hunter. And she just says, I love him. And he's like, you love him? And he looks so hurt and dejected. And she was like, he's only like 9 years old, He's almost 10. And he looks at her confused, and she's like, it's not your kid. It couldn't be your kid. I haven't seen you in 6 years, like, come on. So we find out that this is a kid she used to, she's the nanny for, and she got really close to him. He got a heart transplant. He's doing really well now. And so she's still in his life. He's doing great. And he's just kind of like, oh. And then he puts her audiobooks back. I'm sorry. And then she puts her audiobooks back in her ear. And she likes like Highlanderish, like Scottish Englishman, erotic fiction, that whole thing. Like Outlander, not Highlander, Outlander, that series, which I never watched, by the way. I might need to get into it. But anyway, that's the type of books that she likes to read. And he, of course, is like, you're still reading that type of stuff. You need to read real history books and all this type of stuff, or visit the country. And she says, I've read history books and I visited the country, but apparently the last time she went, it wasn't too great. So he takes out her earbud, and he just kind of tells her that he never anticipated on ever seeing her again. So we switch back to Colin's POV, and it seems like a lot of things have been misunderstood. So he asks her if she lives in San Francisco, and she's like, yeah, she lives just north of it. And she looks at him like, are we really going to have this discussion like we're two old friends? Like, this is weird. And he's like, I want to know how you're doing. He asks her about her parents, and this looks comes over her face, and she just kind of says like she doesn't really know, and that's it. So we get a backstory. Her parents wanted her to go to a specific school, and because she didn't go, they cut her off. They don't talk to her, and she kind of makes the comment, some people can actually keep their promises. And he was like, well, first of all, that's fucked up. You were only 20 years old. Like, you should have been able to make a choice about where you wanted to go to school. Then finally, he asks her, why did you leave me for my best friend, Ewan? And she says, you really want to do this right now? And he's like, yeah, he wants answers. And again, it seems like a lot of miscommunication, not remembering things correctly. It's what's going on. She makes a comment that I wanted you to fight for me, but you didn't. But I'm like, okay, so did you his friend to make him jealous? In that case, you shouldn't be playing stupid fucking games. So again, we have to get to the core of what happened, because they clearly are like speaking in fucking riddles. So Colin's about to say something, but she runs off. She's got tears in her eyes. She runs to the bathroom. She stays in there for like 10 minutes. And then she comes back. She talks to the woman in front of her about books for a long time. They serve breakfast and then they're descending. So he did get an opportunity to ask her. So I'm sorry, he didn't get an opportunity to ask her, like, okay, let's go back to this question. So he saw pictures of her leaving with Ewan, and so he's starting to wonder, like, oh shoot, did my family possibly manipulate me? Because apparently his family has a history of manipulation. They've even messed up deals because they were like, we don't want to work with Americans, just like stupid shit. And so he's starting to wonder, like, what the hell? So this last deal he just did with Robotech really pushed, really did the whole outside of the box thinking type of uh, thing for him, as well as it opened his eyes to a lot of things of trying to like maybe balance his life. Getting this deal will give him a lot more freedom, because we find out he's been a workaholic all these years. And it's like he's just been working and working ever since his dad died. It's been this really dark tunnel. And now that he has Cecilia, now that he's seen Cecilia again, it's just like, oh, there's light, like it's possible again, and he's gonna need answers, right? He's got to get some type of answers for everything. The plane descends, and we find out they're in London, and she's gonna leave for Finland tomorrow. So she's looking forward to, like, staying in a hotel, having a great shower, and doing a little sightseeing. And as she's waiting for her luggage, she sees Colin, and of course, it makes all her lady parts feel some type of way. So she remembers one night they were together, and he gave her her first orgasm, and he promised her more, but then that never happened. And she tends to talk out loud, but thankfully she didn't say that part out loud. She did say some other stuff, and he just kind of says, like, I'm glad you didn't change. He likes that she does it. You're the same. And she says everyone changes. So the bags come off the convoy belt, and the only bag she has is her carry-on, because the airport has lost her bags. And so she's like, oh, I guess I gotta go fill out some paperwork. And so she goes, fills out the form. She walks off and he winds up grabbing her arm and he's like, Cecilia. And she drops her carry on bag. Her stuff comes out. She's got condoms, she's got green thongs, all kind of stuff. He of course picks up the thong. He sees the condoms and in her mind she's like, listen, she wants to be protected. She's not trying to have a kid right now. On top of no diseases. So he tells her like, I'm so sorry, and he helps her pick up everything. They go outside. He's like, I'll give you a ride. That was my fault. I didn't mean to startle you. And she was like, you know what, fine. So he calls out to the driver, Danny, and he's like, we'll take you to your hotel. So she gets in. She's looking at London, and this is what's happening. She has changed her flight again to go to London because she wants to visit Buckingham Palace, Hyde Park, and she's going to go to Finland tomorrow to see the Northern Lights, which to me is so incredibly cool because that is a dream of mine as well, to see the Northern Lights, aka Aurora Borealis. So anyway, she leaves and they get to her hotel and she jumps out of the vehicle, gets her bag, and she gets in the hotel. They tell her what room, and they told her it was on the 5th floor, but it's different here. It's actually on the 6th floor where she's going to be because of how they count the floors. So he comes up behind her, and she's like, she can tell he's there because her vagina's calling him. Her body is a calling detector, she says. And he tells her to push the 6th floor. And she looks at him and she thinks, you know what? This is my vacation. I'm going to let loose. She drops everything, grabs him, and kisses him. We switch back to Colin's POV, and he only got to experience the touch of her lips for like 6 seconds, and then she bolted out of the elevator. So he followed her because she had dropped some stuff. Her room keys was one of them. And so when he walked up, she was like, Colin, and he just didn't say anything. He just opened the door, carried her in, pulled back the covers on the bed, and he's like, you just need to sleep. And it fought every instinct in him because he wanted her so badly, but he was just like, just let her sleep. He took her shoes off and everything, set them aside, and he left. He goes downstairs to the hotel bar, and he sent his driver away, and he had some whiskey, and then after a while he decided to go back up to her room because he still got her spare key. He says it was for safekeeping, but it's also the fact that we don't know if this was a chance meeting. It appears to be, and it's like, if this is a chance meeting, I'm not ready for it to end. Like, I'm not ready for this to be I'll never see her again type of situation. So he does the creepier thing and goes in the room. And she, of course, was asleep. And she fell asleep looking at one of those, the e-readers. So he picked it up and was thinking like, why does she read these things? And so he reads a word or reads a sentence and they start catching, and a scene gets erotic. He's reading, and so he winds up reading until he winds up falling asleep on the floor next to her bed. So we switch back to our girl Cecilia. She wakes up and she's like, you know what? I've slept too much. I need to get out and see London. And so when she gets out of bed, she of course trips over him. Pure shock, that this man is in her room because she felt some type of way when he left out the first time and didn't come back. So she's like, Colin, what are you doing here? And he says, you are still the most beautiful, whatever. And she could smell the whiskey, and she's like, oh gosh, you're drunk. So then he reaches for her ankle, and just her ankle felt good. That's when you know it's probably been a long time, when it's like any part of the body feels so amazing at you. It's been a while. So he winds up reaching up further, grabbing her thigh, and then he grabs her panties and grabs her ass, and he looks at her like, wondering if she's gonna let him keep going. And she tells him to get in the bed, and she meant for just him to get in the bed so he can rest, but he grabbed her and started kissing and fell in the bed with him. And in her head, she's thinking, I shouldn't be doing this, but God, it feels so good. We switch back to Colin's POV. He wakes up. So during the makeout session, he realizes he clearly was a lot drunker than he thought, and he passed out. So when he woke up, she was gone. There was aspirin, water, and a note that says, here's some aspirin and water. You're going to need it when you wake up for your headache. Have a great life. The room's paid up for another day. And so she's gone. And so he calls his assistant, Joanne, talks to her. Joanne had always loved Cecilia. And so when he told Joanne what he was going to get her back, Joanne was like, oh, thank goodness. She's like, but you're going to have some begging to do. And he's like, what do you mean? And so she knows more about the story, but she won't tell him. She just tells him, you all need to talk. So he had saw the brochure, because it had slipped out of her bag, of where she's going in Finland, the resort. And so as he's telling Joanne about it, Joanne said, oh yeah, she did want to go see the Northern Lights. That was her dream. So he's like, book me a flight. And she's like, do you want me to get you a room? And he's like, no, I'm hoping she'll take me in. So Joanne's going to book the flight. He's going to get to Finland. He's cleared his schedule. He said that's why he's got a COO and a CFO, so they can handle things. That's why he trained them. So again, he can finally start having some type of a personal life. We switch back to Cecilia. She's in Hyde Park. She's having her coffee. She's sitting there thinking, like, you know what? She needs a resolution, right? She should have asked him more questions, because if she's thinking about it, it really is very plausible that his family fed her a bunch of bullshit, to get her to go away. And she realizes, she should have probably asked more questions than just running away, And so she's decided to go back to the hotel. She wants some answers. Well, he's gone. And she's like, well, damn it, And she's like, well, you know what? It's fine. She's going to Finland. She's going to start this adventure. So she's in the vehicle, in the shuttle. She's in Finland with another family. The roads are real bumpy, and she tries to answer her phone, and it drops, and she says, fuck. And the little boy was like, I thought fart was a cuss word, but she just said fuck. And his mother was like, oh my gosh. And then Cecilia goes, oh, look at the huge tree. And that got their attention. And the mother just kind of was like, don't feel bad. Like, I just got him to stop saying, get this out my goddamn mouth. He said it at a dentist. But the mom was like, her name's Lindsay. She was like, I'm just glad he used it correctly. That's my thing. When kids curse and they use it correctly, I am not mature. I can't handle it. I will walk away because I can't handle it, because I'm going to start laughing. So anyway, I think the husband's name is Sam, and we find out this couple, they live like 30 minutes from her in California. And so she gave her, well, Lizzie, I think they call her. She gave her number to Cecilia and was like, call me while we're here. We're going to be here for 10 days. Maybe we can have a girls' night or whatever, because her husband, if I'm not mistaken, he works for Robotech. So she's like, cool, absolutely. They seem like really nice people. And she gets to her glass top cabin, which I've seen these. And I just think it's so neat. Like, that just seems very much like a dream, to be in this cabin with a glass top. You look out, and you can see the aurora borealis. Like, I just think that's so amazing. So she's hoping it'll come out tonight. Um, she decides to go get in the sauna, strips down, pours some water for the steam to rise, and then there's a knock on the door. And so she's thinking it's probably staff. She puts a towel on, goes to the door, doesn't look in the peephole, which I'm like, that's stupid. And it is none other than Colin McGregor, and she loses her grip on her towel. We switch to his POV, and we find out that he had one of his hacker friends find out which cabin she was staying in on the property, because it's a big property, and he's glad he did it. So he starts, he like looks at her because she's naked, and all he can see is like how beautiful she is. But he picks up her towel, puts it around her, pushes her back in the cabin, closes the front door, and then he starts to strip down. And he gets butt naked. And he figures, hey, he saw her naked, she can see him naked. So then he was trying to see what she was doing, and he figures out eventually she was in the sauna. So he took her in the sauna, took the ladle, put water to give it some steam, and he says, "You are about to have yourself a nice sauna visit, and I'm not going to interrupt it." And he tells her, "I've changed. I don't let my family control or manipulate me anymore." He said, "I should have asked more questions." And she says to him, "I didn't run away with Ewan." She says, "He was my escape route when you shattered my heart to a million pieces." And I'm like, okay, finally, are we going to get the whole story? So she winds up saying to him, "Why now? Why all of a sudden do you care?" And we still don't get the full story. He just kind of admits that he didn't react his best. He must have said something horrible to her. Um, I should have known it was too soon for us to get all of the tea. But anyway, she makes the comment that, she can't go through this again. She can't take that kind of pain again. And the grief she went through, she just can't do it. And he said to her, like, "Do you think you were the only one that was drowning?" He was like, "I thought you ran off with my best friend." He was like, "And then a month later, his dad dropped dead. And he had to run a business that was, on the verge of collapsing." He was like, "You are not the only one that suffered." And she kind of felt bad because it was kind of like she only thought about herself. But again, if you're under the notion that this person hurt you, I really wouldn't be too concerned with their hurt, right? Because you feel, or you're thinking that they hurt you, like, on purpose, right? So you wouldn't be too much concerned with what they have going on, I would think. Right now, she doesn't want to focus on the past, and I feel like this is a mistake. I feel like, no, you all need to talk about this shit, not just because I'm being nosy and I want to know, but also because clearly there's been a miscommunication. You all need to have it out. But I guess if that was the most painful time in your life, I can understand not necessarily wanting to revisit it. But what if you caused yourself more pain than you should have, and it wasn't all you thought? I don't know. For me, I would want to know. Like, let's just talk this shit out and deal with it. So he's thinking she's gonna kick him out, and he's just staring at her, and he winds up saying, the reason he's staring is because the last time she left, he didn't get the opportunity to memorize every crevice of every piece of her. And this time, if this is going to be the last time he sees her, he wants to do that. That, of course, made her melt. Because you got to think, you're hearing all of this in a Scottish accent. It's pretty hot. So she just says to him, she doesn't want him to leave. And she's like, "We can eat and watch for the aurora borealis." And so that's what they did. They got some food and laid on the bed and looked up in the clear glass in the sky. Now that to me is just freaking beautiful. But again, I want the full story. I'm so sick of these little bits and pieces. We switch back to Colin's POV, and our girl Cecilia, she's falling asleep, and there's like a glimmer of the green, which is the same color as her eyes, and he saw it go by, and it was, well, light up the sky, and he just doesn't want to go to sleep because it's kind of like if he goes to sleep, he might wake up, she might kick him out, change her mind. And so as she's sleeping, she's wiggling her ass on his dick, and he's getting hard, and he's just like, oh gosh, oh gosh. So she wakes up, and she was like, I thought it was a dream, and he's like, no, I'm very much here. And she wants to fuck. She's like, I need you. I need more than just that one night that we had all those years ago. He doesn't just want sex with her. This pisses her off. She winds up falling because she tried to jump out of the bed, but her robe got twisted on something and she fell. But he caught her before she hit the ground. She does that whole spiel about not wanting to go through all of this. He starts talking about the family and that he knows that they, can manipulate. And he says that he doesn't allow them to do that to him anymore. And they apparently had told him some kind of way, they told him something different, like that she had left him. And then he's like pleading with her for another chance. But I'm like, we can't give you another chance until we have the full story. I'm like, tell what happened so then we'll know, okay, can she forgive him? Can she not? But stop. It's like y'all keep trying to get past the point that you've got to go through. Like, you all have got to talk about this so that way you can get on the other side. You can look back at it with now a clearer picture, and you can decide, okay, I want this. It was still too much. I don't want it. But they keep trying to skip it, and it's pissing me off because I want to know the story. Like, if you saying you got a family that manipulates you and things like that, okay, well, what did they say? How did they manipulate? What was the exact lie that was told to you that you believed? So they just kind of irked me with that. He did admit, though, that he was very immature back then. And remember, she had stated there were two different breakups. So the first breakup, I don't know if that was the family's fault or not, because again, we're not getting the backdrop of what happened. But apparently the second one they were involved in, but again, we'll just have to wait until they give us a full picture, and hopefully they will soon because I'm getting aggravated. But anyway, she eventually agrees to having this talk because the truth is, she also realizes that she could have handled things differently. And that right there to me is a sign of maturity on both parts. I will say that. Not looking at a situation and just going, it's all that other person's fault. I did nothing wrong. I'm perfect, because that's not reality. So clearly there's been growth on both sides. So now they've agreed to have the conversation that we all have been waiting to hear. And he asked her, is this going to be a tea or a whiskey type of conversation? And she goes, this is going to be a whiskey type of conversation. She drinks a gulp of whiskey and she doesn't really know where to start from. We get a little backdrop and we find out that she was like a really good swimmer. Like getting ready for national, possibly the Olympics was in her future. Like she was a world-class swimmer. And she had picked this school based on their swimming program. And, she had a scholarship, all this great stuff, but then she got hurt. So this happened 6 years ago. And so when she met up with him and he dumped her the second time around, again, we still don't know the first round breakup reason, but when it came to the second time, this is when they they were going to get married. The second time they got together. So after the first time he dumped her, she had cut him off. She was done. You know, it was heartbreaking, but that was it. Well, she got hurt and she ripped her rotary cuff. She had to get surgery, lost her scholarships. She had to work, pay her medical bills, all these things. Or her parents didn't call her. They basically wrote her off because she didn't go to the school that they wanted her to go to. And they basically, again, wrote her off because of that. So even after she got hurt, even after that, they still wouldn't call her. They still wouldn't help her. Nothing. Well, he heard about her getting hurt and he reached out. And through that, you know, being vulnerable at that time, she winds up talking to him. And because he really was checking on her, he really was concerned about her. And so what winds up happening is she had been like couch surfing and he had invited her to come to Scotland because they had been doing some chats, you know, some correspondence. And he invited her to come to Scotland. And being what her situation was, she was like, you know what? Sounds great to me. And so she goes, and then something happened, but she was afraid to say what the mother said to her. Because he was like, no, tell me what was said to you. But again, she feels like, okay, if we talk about this, it's going to cause a problem. But it's like, y'all have got to get to the root of all this stuff. Like, you've got to do it. Well, then she's saved by the bell because her phone rings. And so he goes, don't answer it. But by the ringtone, she knew it was that the child Hunter. And so she's like, it's Hunter. I've got to answer it. He said, well, okay, I understand that. I understand that. Now, that to me also shows some maturity because he does understand how important Hunter is to her. And he didn't have that attitude of, no, we have to talk about this right now. So I like that. That she is showing some growth. She talks with Hunter, and then after that, Abby comes on the screen. Abby asks her if she would consider doing like freelance work with her company because Cecilia's like a really great artist. And book one is, what is it called? Bad One Night Stand or something like that. That one kind of concentrates on Abby and I think Jordan is who she's married to. It focuses on their story along with their children. So, again, if you want to know more about their story, you can read that one. Um, so she, of course, is like really happy with this opportunity. Like, oh wow, like, because she's been doing nannying jobs and like some freelance work a little here and there, but to come on with a big company, that would be like really good. And she's excited about it. And when before she gets off the phone, because she does feel a little homesick talking to them, which she's never felt in her life. Since she's met these group of people, they have become her family. And so she realizes, wow, like I really miss them. And Abby told her the name of some book, and she was like, you got to read chapter 16 and all this type of stuff. And her husband Jordan comes on. He's like, you know, are you okay? And he can kind of tell something's kind of up with her, but she's like, no, I'm fine. He realizes she doesn't want to talk about it, but he lets her know, we're here. If you ever need to talk, we're here. Please try and enjoy yourself, you know? And that was it. get off the phone. So she looks up, and Colin is reading chapter 16 in this book that Abby was talking about. And it's getting real graphic, and she winds up taking it from him and throwing it across the room. And when she does, she's on him, and there's all this tension, and she winds up kissing him. So she's kissing him, but he's not kissing her back, and she's kind of like, uh, are you not going to kiss me back? And so he kisses her back. It's super intense. She starts grabbing on his dick, and he says like, no, 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 no. So she's like, no, I don't want to think about the past. Like, I don't want to do it. And he's like, but we have to. He's like, we've got to deal with this. And so it took everything in him to like stop, because it's not like he doesn't physically want her. You know, that's not the issue at all. So eventually we get some story. So she asked him, what do you remember? He said that his sister Lana and his mother Bridget came to him with a journal that looked like Cecilia's, and it was saying how she was using him. This was her get back, that she was getting him back for the hurt that he caused her 2 years prior. And she was going to take him for every pound that he had. So even now, when he looks at that, the verbiage that was written in the alleged journal, it said things like, I'm here on holiday instead of like vacation. So Americans say vacation, but overseas, Europeans, normally they say holiday. And that should have alerted him that there was something wrong with this. And he was like, I'm so sorry. You know, he said, I should have paid more attention and I would have caught it. We also find out the reason Lana and the mother Bridget want Cecilia gone is a couple reasons. First of all, she's American. They have an issue with that. They wanted Colin to marry Olivia. Now, Olivia is Lana's best friend. But even though Olivia is a beautiful woman, he didn't want her because she's weak. She does whatever Lana tells her to do. She's got like no backbone. And so they kept trying to push them together after everything went down and Cecilia left. And he was in such grief, like it didn't even work. So they did all of that, and he still didn't choose who they wanted him to choose. So then he wanted to know, what did he say to her? He doesn't remember what he said, because after his family showed him the proof, and I say that in quotation marks, he got really, really, really drunk. And so finally she tells him what he said, which was, I see why your parents don't want anything to do with you. And he felt awful, because that was like the most personal attack that he could believe. So like earlier in the book, yeah, whatever he said, it was negative. It wasn't a good way to spin it. And he just felt beyond awful. And she's like, you can't shoulder all of the blame. She says, I ran, and that's what I've done for a very long time. Things get hard, I run. And I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. I want to be able to deal with my shit. So Hewen had come to the spot where they were going to get married and told her, hey, listen, this is what just happened. He just got told this information, and he's like, you need to call him right now. So she calls him, and then she gets told that, you know, I see why your parents want nothing to do with you. So again, he feels awful. You know, he felt like even if he was drunk, well, to me, let me say this. When you're drunk, that's how you feel, right? That's what comes out. But also, his response is based on the information that he had received, which was, she's like using you, she's trying to make a fool of you. It's based off of that, right? It's not based off of his true feelings that her parents shouldn't want to talk to her. It's based off the fact that I'm being told you're this grimy person. And it's like, well, if this is who you are, no wonder your parents wouldn't want to deal with you. So that's where it's coming from. However, if we put all that aside, a lot of times when someone's drunk, that's how they really feel about you. Because there's no filter, right? There's nothing to stop them from saying all that they really feel. And so if I'm on her end, I hear someone say this to me, I would think, oh my God, this is how he's seen me all along, right? Even though in their situation, there's false information that's been put in there to give that opinion. But he feels bad because he said something that hurt her and he can't take it back. He can't. But hey, you just got to push through. So we also found out that the first time that he broke up with her, which would have been 8 years ago, it was from pressure from the family. They didn't want him to marry an American, right? And they basically pushed him and pushed him to break up with her. And so, again, he states when he was younger, he was immature. He was a lot easier to manipulate, and they did it very easily, you know? But he told her he's going to spend every day of his life trying to make up for what happened. He told her he'll never let her go. Like, to me, this sounds like psychotic behavior. But for him, it's like, I have let this amount of time go by where I didn't have you based on something I wasn't strong enough to look into, right? Like, I just took someone else's word at face value. For him, he's like, she's the one, and he's never letting anyone come between them again. So he took her outside. They go sledding, panning, which is, I guess, searching for gold. All kinds of stuff. Next day, he took her horseback riding. Super fun. She got a phone call from one of her friends, Heather, and they had a nice little heart-to-heart conversation. And Cecilia had made this comment about her parents not, basically, stating not having a good relationship with her parents. And Heather's just kind of like, oh, you're in the right club. None of us have good relationships with our parents. She's like, I guess that's our bond. And I'm kind of thinking they already knew apparently about her parents, because I'm like, girl, if anyone can do a background check, but if these people had any kind of money, they were going to do a background check and found out everything. But she just never really thought about it that way. It was just like kind of shocking to her that Heather like pretty much already knew what she had gone through. So then anyway, Heather said some encouraging things to her too. She's like, you are such a wonderful person. Everything that you had to come through and to still be who you are. She's like, you're amazing. And that, of course, made her smile. So she told her she had been horseback riding, and Heather thought said like, was meaning like in code she'd been fucking, right? And she's like, no, I literally was on a horse. But she's like, don't worry, I'll be doing the other one soon too. And she hung up. So then we find out our boy Colin has been trying to pay for everything. So the cabin was like on a voucher from Abby and Jordan, right? Her friends. But like all the extra stuff, she's going to pay for that, right? So he put his credit card down, took hers off, and she found out when she went to go pick up some stuff to sign the credit card slip, it wasn't her last 4 digits. So she changed it back to hers. And then he's just been trying to pay for everything. And so she has to kind of explain to him, this means a lot for me to be able to do this for myself, so don't like deny me that. He said, okay, fine. He's like, but let me at least pay half since I'm staying here with you. And he's like, and if I want to get you something, like, kind of don't give me too much grief about it, and she's going to try. And I thought that was sweet. But again, this is the maturity side of them. Not like, you're doing what I don't want you to do. I'm done with it, right? That's what they would have done 6, 7 years ago, right? But now even though this is something small, this is not huge, this is kind of small, right? But it's showing that they're able to verbalize how they're feeling, when they're feeling it, and the other person can hear them. So that's a good start. After that conversation, they they go back out. He does some ice fishing. He gets her a bunch of blankets, a bunch of layers of clothes, so she can be outside and she can sketch and do her drawings. And it was super sweet. Then afterwards, they come inside and she sucks him off. He eats her cooch, and they have fun. They feel good about it, you know. At the same time, I'm sitting here going, as the reader, okay, when's the other shoe gonna drop? Because you know it's coming. Next day, they're outside, they're playing in the snow with Lizzie, Sam, and their kids, and they're having an absolute blast. Uh, he winds up getting a phone call calling because he's watching along with Sam. He's watching them play, and it's his office. And he was just kind of like, okay, he's got to answer it because he had told them only if it's an emergency do they need to reach out to him. So they tell him that it's his mother. She's demanding to know where he is. So he's like, put her on the phone. So they put her on the phone, and she's like, they're not telling me where you are, and I have a right to know, all this type of shit. And so he says, what is it that you need? And she needs more money than what's in her account because this designer is in Edinburgh, and they're doing this revolutionary thing with boots, and she needs them. So she just wants extra money, okay? So we find out after the dad died, all she did was shop. You know, he's trying to pick up everything because they were already in debt, right? Before the dad even died. They were already on the brink. And all the his mom did was just spend money. So she was making it harder. Well, her and the sister. And so the mother says how, she has made all kind of sacrifices and she shouldn't have to ask and all this type of crap. And he says, I'm sorry, what sacrifices have you made? And she's like, she couldn't come up with anything. He says, I'll give you the money. He shoots a text to the account business manager to let him know to just give her the money. So he plans on confronting them and getting to the bottom of everything that they did. But right now his focus is just to very much make Cece know that he's serious and to find out where her head is. Because again, like he said, it's never losing her again. So then they go inside and he's like, you're cold. Do you want to get in the sauna? She's like, no, I'm not cold. She's like, no, I need you. I need you. So then he eats her pussy, and she, was at that place where she can tell him what she likes. If she likes it more, she's very, very confident. Some people are kind of nervous. Like, some people won't say anything because they're like, they didn't want the other person. But she's very much like, no, do that. Keep doing that. That's what feels good. So she has like this earth-shattering orgasm. And then afterwards, she tells him, thank you. And she reaches behind him and gets the condoms, and she's like, do you want to help me use these? So he gets naked, he kisses her, much passion, and then he puts the condom on, and he's like, and she is saying like, I need you inside of me. But before he does, he's like, are you sure? He's like, because I can wait. We can do other stuff. We don't have to do anything if you don't want to. She's like, no, now. So he slams into her. They have this nice hard fuck. Brought tears to her eyes, and she knew like she was back in like the love. She was there. She was in love. That was it. So afterwards, she made a comment like, what have I done? Because she knew like this is the third time being involved with him, you know. And it's like it's just a matter of time to kind of see what this third time is going to bring. And the Northern Lights appeared as well, which is always amazing. We switch back to Colin's POV. He's watching her sleep. It's morning. He realizes he's got a call he wants to make. So he puts on clothes, goes outside, and unblocks a number that's been blocked for 6 years. So he calls Ewan Campbell, his former best friend. It rings and rings. It goes to voicemail. He hangs up, and then Ewan calls back, and they have it out. He apologizes to Ewan, and then he hears a woman in the background, and he's like, who's that? Like, and he finds out. He's like, I'm trying to keep it low because I don't want to wake my child up. So Ewan has gotten married. He's been married for about 2 years, and he's got a 6-week-old child. And these guys have been friends for so long. I mean, back to their school days. And the idea that 2 major events have happened in his life and he wasn't there, it makes him feel even worse. Because it's like, I have missed so much behind this, the fuckery, basically, And so Ewan gives him a piece of his mind, letting him know, you should have believed me. You should have known I would never do anything like that to you. And that he was also shocked when Colin tells him that him and Cecilia are on a vacation together. He's like, oh my God, I didn't think she would ever come near you again. He tells him, but don't mess it up. He's like, she went through a lot after that. And so give her time and be honest with her and don't ever abandon her again, And he's like, that's the best thing I can tell you to fix it. It's going to take some time because she's got to feel that confidence that he's just not going to run, that you're not just going to run away. So we'll see. We switch back to Cecilia's POV, and Colin's gone, but he came back and he had chocolate croissants, which are her favorite, and some other breakfast things. And she could tell something's different. She's like, something's off, something's off. So after he gives her the chocolate croissant, he kind of retreats back. She can tell. So she says to him, in her mind, she's thinking like is he like trying to prepare himself to leave me? Like she's concerned. She's really concerned. But this time she decides she's not going to curl up in a ball. She's not going to, run away. She's going to demand some answers. And so he gets up, he goes to take a shower, and before he goes, he tells her, he's like, I love you. She wasn't expecting that. She says it back, but then she goes to him and she thought about, she wants to give him a blowjob. Like, so she went in the bathroom and he's just sitting there. And she is like, what's wrong? And he tells her about the conversation he had with Ewan, and that he wasn't even aware that her and Ewan still talk. Because she's like, yeah, we still get together, because Ewan had told him, like, she's got great friends. They're her family now, X, Y, and Z. And she tells him, like, just so you know, he was always like a big brother to me. Nothing more ever happened. She's like, hell, I couldn't even handle anything more happening, And she's like, frankly, I don't know how I would have made it back without him, And he's still just kind of looking at her, because again, it's the guilt, right? It's the guilt of what's happened, and that he played a huge part in that. It's really getting to him. And she does say to him, I don't think we would have made it back then. And he's like, don't say that. She's like, no, I'm being honest. She says, I don't think we were mature enough I think because we weren't mature enough, they would have found a way to separate us anyway, you know? And she's hoping this time is going to be different, you know? She's different. He seems to be different, right? Even though he gave the mom the money, I don't think that was manipulation. It was just like just to get her off the phone. You know what I mean? So there does seem to be a difference in how they're handling things. But I also think that was pretty. I love the honesty from her of saying, you know what? I don't think we were mature enough to deal with what we had back then. I don't think we could have did it. I think there were too many things against us that we weren't mature enough to handle. I love it. Because self-awareness, let me tell you, that is the key. Because when you're self-aware, you now know what you can, change, you know? You know what you need to change, shall I say. So after that talk, they wind up, having their fun in the shower. So she's going to go to Berlin next, and he wants to come with her. And she's like, don't you have to get back to work? And he's like, I've taken off some time. He's like, I haven't taken off a day in the past 6 years. So I've had people, I've been, grooming people that are ready to step up and take over so that I can step away when I need to, And not Abby, Cecilia's thinking about, she's got freelance work as well coming up with Abby and their company. And he's got a meeting coming up with a woman named Heather. And she's starting to think about the fact, okay, they have 2 different lives on 2 different planets, 2 different continents, And he says, well, I'm going to be in California more because he's focusing on the technology ventures. And, he's also got a private jet. That's the reason he's got it. And she's like, well, why didn't you take the private jet to come over here? And he said because he had loaned it to someone else, But he can come and visit whenever he likes. And that's what he had apparently started to do. So he was going to start looking for her. So him starting out, it was like he was going to ask everyone he knew that he could remember who could have possibly given him some type of information about her. He thought about putting up something on Facebook. He started a YouTube. Like he was coming to find her. Like he had found that balance in his life and he was coming for her. He was going to try and make it right. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But apparently it was still chance meeting them on that flight. That was a chance meeting. Shocked me because I was like, well, then he must have scoped her out because that's what I was thinking. But no. So they arrive in Berlin and they were able to take his private jet because the person who used it was done with it. And she was against it at first. And she's like, you're taking it away from the company, X, Y, and Z. And he says, listen, there are other jets for the company. He's like, this is my personal one. And she goes, oh. And Joanne, his assistant, she's also rented out a flat for a few days in Berlin. And, for her, it all seems very excessive. But his thing is, again, just allow me to do for you. He's like, I won't go overboard because I know you're not into that. He's like, but if I want to do something special for you, just accept it graciously. And she says, and if I want to do something special for you, accept it graciously as well. And he said, will do. And so they agreed. They get inside, he kissed her, and he put her on the bed. So they fuck, they have a good time. Then they go downstairs to the pub to have some drinks. She's gotten kind of drunk. She's having a great time. She loves when he speaks with his Scottish accent, like it just does something to her. Her phone starts ringing, And she's like, I don't care. He's like, no, it could be important. So he reaches in her purse and she answers it. It's her mother. And she was just like, Mom, like, what are you calling me for? And he was ready to take over the phone call for her. But she was like, no, 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 I got it. I can handle it. So the mother called to tell her that the father has fallen ill and wants to see her. She didn't go down the list of things that her parents have not have done to her. She just thought about them in her head. But it was the idea of this is the biological family, right? And how when she was hurt, no one cared, right? She's going through it, no one cared. They're going to punish her because she chose to go to a college that wasn't their choice, but it was good for what she wanted to do, which was swimming. And now it's like your father is hurt. Now he wants to talk to you. You need to talk to him. That's not how this works. And all she says, I was so proud. She says, I hope he'll be okay. Because her mother was like, you need to get on the next plane back home. And she says, again, I hope he's okay. I hope he recovers. And I hope you'll be well too. And she hung up the phone. And I love it. I love it. Because I feel like if she had listed everything that they had done to her, it was like they knew they were doing these things to her, right? They knew they were hurting her. And to list them means you still remember, right? It's you still remember what I did to you, which means I still have an effect on you. But the fact that she didn't even list it, she just said, hope all is well with you. This has nothing to do with me, basically. That was her reaction. And she hangs up. She's done with them. She says that in her heart, she closed them off a long time ago. After what they did to her that last time of not being there for her when she had had surgery and things like that, that was it. And being now that she has a real family and how the love is unconditional, they're there for her when she needs them, and there's nothing expected of her, you know? Once you experience that, you're not going back to the bullshit. Fuck, biological. I'm so thankful I don't have parents like this, But I've seen some people with some pretty rough parentage, and I'm just proud of her. I love that she treated him this way because that's what they deserved. Colin was happy for her as well because he knew how big of a deal this was. He knew how much she clearly has grown that she was able to just do that. So after they leave from there, they go upstairs to the flat. Well, he sends her upstairs to the flat because he's going to let her get a massage, her hair, makeup done, beautiful dress because he's going to take her out for a really nice dinner. While she's in the bath, he puts a little note that says chapter 12 is really good. And so while she took her bath, she read the book. And then she gets her hair done. And when he sees her, in her out dressed, she's beautiful. And so she had taken a page out of the book. And the guy had taken like some lace panties and put them in the guy's jacket. And so that's what she did to him. So he kisses her and it just makes him kiss her even harder. So later that night, he's texting with Ewan. And Ewan had sent him a photo of the baby and his wife. And it was really sweet. And he told him, listen, my best advice for you to do is just love her, you know? And Ewan still thinks he's a good dude. He doesn't feel like he's a bad guy, even after everything that happened, It's just unfortunate that he was just so easily manipulated by his family. So the next day, they're going to meet up with Heather for drinks. And they wind up being late because she had a little moment after he said, I love you. She was kind of hesitant to say it back this time. And he just kind of told her she didn't have to say it. He knows how she feels. You know, it's not going to change how he feels about her, even if she doesn't love him. Like, he winds up playing with her, giving her some orgasms. She's just kind of like, you know what, Heather's gonna be late anyway. She's probably looking at emails. So they're walking to the restaurant, and he does let her know, listen, if you just want your girl time, you can have that. I totally understand. She's like, no, 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 no. I want you to meet her. So they get there. Come to find out, he already knows Heather. This is his Heather, his business partner. And so they're sitting there and they're like, this is beyond weird, you know? So she's like, how do you know Cece? He's like, I've known her since high school and I've loved her ever since. And Heather clearly sees it. And then she's in the group chat with all the other women and they're going off. But she's busy too because she's got to go to another meeting. So this was going to be really quick anyway. But they did have a nice time, like sitting there talking, getting, just getting caught up. And he just kind of let them have their time. He wasn't trying to interrupt. And Cecilia was like, if you guys have anything to talk about, if you need me to step away, I will. So they're just very conscious of each other's times. I think that's just so sweet. I really do. So then her next stop is going to be to Paris. And he's got to go to Edinburgh. I don't know if I'm saying it right. It's either Edinburgh or Edinburgh. And he's got to handle some stuff, but he'll come back to Paris to meet up with her. So he drops her off. They take the PJ. She was okay with it this time. Joanne set up a flat for her to stay in Paris. And he tells her, just promise me you won't go to the Eiffel Tower without me. And she says, no problem, but I'm not going without croissants. I cannot live without those. It was a little hard for them to let go of each other. They really do feel like they have found that other part of themselves. It's really super sweet how they describe. And so he goes to Edinburgh and he's going to make sure that his mother and his sister never come between him and Cecilia again. So Cecilia's in Paris. It's night. Doubts are starting to creep in her mind. She's starting to think about the fact he's back in Scotland. What if his family can get into his head again? And so she texts her girlfriends. They have this text chain. And she says, I need to talk. They all answer. They're like, we're here. What's going on? So then one of them says, no, we need a video chat. So they do a video chat. She winds up telling them what happened from beforehand because they didn't know about all of this. So she tells them, how they were supposed to get married 6 years ago. And her friends tell her, it sounds like you need to go to Scotland. You need to get over your fear of Scotland. Because being that he's going to travel there, that's kind of like his home base, you don't need to feel doubt and panic every time he goes to Scotland. You all will not survive if that's how you feel. So she's like, Abby tells her, I'm going to have my assistant book you a flight to Scotland so you can see him in his element and see what's going on. And so that's what she's going to do. So we switched to Colin. He was in a meeting when he saw Cecilia's name pop up and he was like, Francine is going to she's second in command and she's going to take over the meeting that he was in. And he told the guys, listen, if you have any questions, just, put them to Francine. So apparently some of them have an issue with the fact that she's a woman, but he's already decided if they can't work with Francine, he's not going to do business with them. He doesn't need their business. And he's beyond confident in Francine and her abilities. And so I like that. He sounds like a stand-up boss. I like that. So she says to him, Cecilia, because he's like, what's wrong? Are you okay? She's like, no, nothing's wrong. She's like, but I kind of may have flew to Scotland to surprise you. And he's like, really? And she's like, yeah, are you mad? He's like, no. He's like, I was having the jet gassed up because I was coming to you tonight. I was going to leave out in a couple of hours because I needed to see you. And so he tells her, let me know where you are. I already have a driver at the airport because they were dropping someone off for a flight to Dubai, and I'll have him pick you up. He was like, he'll be there in 10 minutes. He's like, and then I'll see you in 30 minutes at my flat. And she, of course, is like, are you really glad, that I came? He's like, yes. He was like, I was missing you terribly. So he's got this huge smile on his face. He's in the back of his car because he's headed to the flat. His driver is looking at him like he's crazy because they've never seen him this way. It's like, what is wrong with him? But he's actually really happy. And I think, again, you find something that makes you that happy, you don't want to let that shit go. Which is why I do feel like he goes a little psychotic with, I'll never let her go, because I think it's because he's never truly felt this way before. Before he heads to the apartment or the flat, he stops by a bakery to get her some croissants and then to get her some daffodils because that's her favorite flower. And his mother actually called him while he was in the car, and she goes, what have you done? Talking about the fact she must have figured out or found out about Cecilia. And he lets her know that tomorrow him and Cecilia are coming to the house for brunch, and that should give her enough time to get packed. And he hung up, and she kept calling back, and he just silenced the phone. So he gets to his flat. She's got on this sexy lingerie. He's so excited. They have fun. He tells her that tomorrow they're going to go have brunch with his family, and he tells her what he's done. So he has given them, his mother and his sister, a 30-day notice of eviction. Okay? He's kicking them out of the family home. He's bought them another home far away. They will still get their profits from the company, but he just doesn't want anything to do with him. And at first she was kind of like, are you sure that's your family? But then she kind of had to remember, you've got the same thing going on with your parents. It doesn't matter about the biological status when they are shit to you, when they treat you like you're shit. I'm with him, I totally get it. So the next day they go. Bridget, his mother's there. Lana, his sister's there. And Olivia, Lana's friend. They're all in the library. Joanne is there. And she, of course, was so happy to see Cecilia because she's always loved her. And so they go in, and Olivia just starts confessing. Olivia says, I'm the one that forged the documents, the journal. I'm the one that showed a bank account looked like she was stealing money. She faked that. She followed Cecilia and Hewen when he was showing her around the town. Took those pictures as proof. She apologized for doing it. Cecilia was like, why would you do it? And she said, because I wanted to marry him. I wanted to be with him. And I was like, that's kind of a duh answer. Like, why the hell else would she do it? She begged for Colin's forgiveness. He said no. Cecilia was like, she's not forgetting what happened, but she's just, the past is the past. That's just kind of it, right? Bridget freaks out, the mom, and she says, when Cecilia says, like, why would you do that to me? Like, you were so sweet to me and kind to me. You made me feel like you were accepting me into the family. And Bridget said, because you took him away from me. He's mine. The money is mine. So, again, that's what it was all about. It was just about the money. Someone else comes in. It's like she can influence our boy, and they wanted Olivia in that position because Olivia they felt could influence him. So they really thought he was weak as shit. Like, he didn't have no fucking backbone. Good grief. So, at first, they tried to put up a fight. Lana saying, you can't keep us from the money, And he says, technically, I can't cut you off if I want to, but I'm not going to do that. but I'm banning you from this house. I don't ever want to see any of you ever again. You'll get your monthly stipends, what you're due, and that's it. Like, he's done. And I like it. I really do. So we fast forward a few weeks. She's kind of gotten a routine, Cecilia, at the home. She takes a walk in the morning, and then after that, she might take a horse ride, and then she does sketches, either freehand or on her tablet. And a lot of times she'll forget to eat, so Joanne will get her something to eat. And so one of the horses, it actually was Lana's horse, but she never dealt with the horse. But the horse loves Cecilia. Like, when she gave it some sugar cubes and some sweet words, she whispered to it, he's been devoted to her, won't let anyone else ride him except for her. Um, they're near the cliff, like this beautiful view. That sounds scary to me, cliffs, I'm just saying. He brings her some croissants, and she's like, I'm gonna get fat eating all these croissants. And he's like, doesn't matter, I'm gonna love you, doesn't matter. So he feels again the other part of his heart. It's complete now. And they're gonna go to Bali, Fiji, and some other different places in the southern hemisphere. Everywhere she wants to go on her list, he's taking off some time, and they're gonna go see those places. We fast forward 6 months. They're at the hospital, and Cecilia comes bursting through the door saying she had the baby, a healthy baby girl. Abby did. And he bought her a ring, huge diamond surrounded by emeralds, which are the color of her eyes. Asked her to marry him, and he's like, since we don't have the best track record with weddings, how about we go to Vegas? She loved the idea. She's like, let's do it. So they gas up the jet. They get to Vegas, and Heather's there at the chapel, and she's got all the friends on the phone. And even Abby, after birth, they're all crammed into the phone. She has to put him on mute because they were talking too much. And so they're there, and for Cecilia this is perfect because her family's still there, but it was their moment, her and Collins, and they were able to have that, and I thought that was super sweet. And so that's how it ends. Now again, the next book, if I'm not mistaken, it's about Heather. So again, each one of the books are separate. You can read them as individuals, but they're all a part of the Billionaire series. I thought it was so cute. What did you all think? I just thought it was a nice, cute little read. I did get aggravated when they wouldn't just expand on what happened, but I guess they had to just kind of draw it out, whatever. But I still loved it. I thought it was super sweet. It just kind of teaches you, honestly, family can be anyone. And sometimes just follow your gut, you know? Eventually it'll lead you to the right place. What did you guys think? Drop that in the comment section and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the links are going to be available down below in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.